Let's go back to a late night in 2003, when friends pushed open the door of Jonathan Brandis's Los Angeles apartment and froze. The boy, who stole millions of hearts in seaQuest DSV, was hanging in the hallway, an old pillowcase wrapped around his neck, a few drops of liquor staining the tile floor. Jonathan, the golden-haired star who lit up Tiger Beat covers, had it all: fame, love, the spotlight. But at 27, he left without a goodbye. No note, no explanation. That blonde kid with the perfect smile hid a pain nobody saw. What drove a star loved by a generation to slip away in silence? A mysterious argument at a birthday party, secret tapes he kept hidden, or a loneliness so heavy it crushed his heart? Behind Hollywood's glow was a wounded Jonathan, carrying secrets he couldn't share. Stay with us as we step into Jonathan Brandis's story, a journey from stardom to shadows, where the truth still waits to be uncovered. Chapter 1. A Harsh Childhood. Under the Spotlight. At 4 years old, a little boy stood under blazing stage lights, sweat beading on his forehead, reciting a Captain Crunch cereal ad. "It's part of a balanced breakfast." The director's voice boomed. "Do it again, Jonathan." Bigger smile. But nobody asked, "Are you okay?" Jonathan Brandis, with his blonde hair and blue eyes, born in 1976 in Danbury, Connecticut, was no stranger to the spotlight before he could even read. In a room thick with cigarette smoke and the whir of cameras, the kid forced a smile, clutching a tiny Superman pin, his mom's gift to keep him safe. By 6, Jonathan was on the set of One Life to Live, playing Kevin Buchanan, dressed in a crisp white shirt. He stood in a stuffy studio, paint fumes from the set stinging his nose. "Don't let Mom down," Jonathan, his mother, Mary, would say, her voice gentle but heavy with expectation. Those words silenced him, his eyes scanning the strangers' directors, crew, all waiting for him to be perfect. In one scene, he had to cry as his character lost a loved one. The cameras clacked, lights glared, and Jonathan, just 6, tried to force tears. Deep down, he missed his small Connecticut home, the sound of birds outside his window, where he could run and play without eyes on him. When his family moved to Los Angeles in 1985, Jonathan was 9. Their new apartment near Hollywood hummed with traffic and neon lights. He kept that Superman pin in his pocket, like a charm against the unfamiliar. But the set wasn't a place for kids. "Hurry up, we're out of time," a director would yell, as Jonathan redid a line for the 10th time. Sweat soaked his shirt, the air feeling sucked out of the room. Years later, a friend from Orlando said, "There was something in Jonathan's eyes at 9, like he knew too much, like he'd seen Hollywood's dark corners." Jonathan never talked about those days. He just held that Superman pin, smiled for the camera, and kept going. But behind that smile, was he already feeling alone? Did the pressure of the lights, the weight of "Don't let Mom down," plant the seeds of a pain nobody noticed? Could those early years, when young Jonathan was forced to grow up too fast, have laid the groundwork for the tragedy to come? Did the stage lights hide Jonathan's loneliness, or did they sow the seeds of his heartbreak? Chapter 2. The Burden of Being a Teen Idol. In a smoky studio, director George Miller shouted, "You've got one shot. Jonathan, go." A 13-year-old boy stood there, 3 cameras trained on his young face, hot lights burning his blonde hair. The pressure of grown men weighed on Jonathan Brandis's shoulders, as if the world expected him to shine. This was the set of the NeverEnding Story II in 1990, where he played Bastion Bucks. But his real breakout was as Bill Denbrough in Stephen King's It miniseries that same year. Stuttering through lines, facing fear in a mirror, was Jonathan's toughest role. It isn't human, he stammered, voice trembling. The director called cut, but Jonathan's tears kept falling, as if the role never truly ended. The It set was a maze of cables, lights, and camera hums. Paint fumes hung heavy, the air suffocating. After each take, Jonathan slipped out to the back lot, holding an unopened soda can, sitting quietly on a cold bench. Co-stars said he'd stare into the distance, silent, as if hiding a loneliness even he didn't understand. That was the hardest role I ever did, he later shared, his voice low, carrying a heavy memory. But the real stardom hit in 1993, at 17, when Jonathan became Lucas Wolinchak in seaQuest DSV. Steven Spielberg's sci-fi show turned him into a teen idol. Outside the Orlando set, young girls pounded on glass doors, screaming, "Jonathan, Jonathan." But inside, he shed Lucas's diving suit, staring at his muddy shoes, as if the cheers weren't for him. 4,000 fan letters poured in weekly, calling him a dreamboat on Tiger Beat covers 8 times in 1 year, co-star Roy Scheider noted. He took fame with a bit of caution, but what did that caution hide? A crew member shared online that Jonathan often left the set with red eyes, still clutching that unopened soda. The crowd's roars seemed to pass through him. He flashed a perfect smile for the cameras, but when they stopped, he walked away quietly. Fame hit like a wave, pulling him to the center, but leaving him alone in the deep. He also starred in Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield. But seaQuest was where he shone brightest and felt the loneliest. That day, he stepped off the seaQuest set, the crowd erupting, hands reaching to touch him. But when the car door closed, Jonathan bowed his head, eyes shut for a moment, as if leaving the spotlight behind. The teen idol's smile lingered. But what was growing in his heart? Did seaQuest's dazzling glow hide the loneliness eating away at Jonathan? Chapter 3 was love, a double-edged sword that pushed Brandis deeper into tragedy. In a dim corner of a Los Angeles nightclub, neon lights flickering, Jonathan Brandis sat quietly, holding an untouched glass of water, watching Tatiana Ali shine amid the crowd. Music pounded. Strangers swarmed around the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air star. Maybe that's when he first felt love could make you lonely. They met at a Halloween party in 1993. He, 17. She, 14. 2 years later, they were dating. And Jonathan told People magazine in 1996, "I love her so much." They co-starred in Fall into Darkness, a TV movie, Hollywood's golden couple, hand in hand on red carpets, their smiles melting fans' hearts. But fame had its price. Jonathan, the boy who had thousands of girls screaming for seaQuest DSV, now sat backstage, as if waiting for a role in his own life. We'd go to clubs, and there was always some guy hitting on her. He complained, his voice tinged with insecurity. Under those flashing lights, he felt himself fading next to Tatiana, like a star outshone. Tatiana later shared that as his fame dimmed. Jonathan seemed to lose himself, as if he didn't know who he was without applause. They broke up in 2001, no public explanation, in Jonathan's small apartment. A photo of them sat on his desk, its glass cracked, lines spreading like his heart. Friends noticed he never replaced the frame, as if holding on to the pain. One friend said Jonathan whispered, "I don't know who I can trust anymore." That loneliness seemed to grow, like shadows creeping through the cracks. On November 11th, 2003, Jonathan attended Leonardo DiCaprio's birthday party. Hours before the tragedy, in the party's dim glow, he stood alone in a corner, eyes red, clutching his phone, muttering. Someone there shared online. He argued with someone, then left fast, his phone glowing with an unsent message. No one knew what it said or who it was for. He stepped into the street, Los Angeles streetlights casting shadows on his tired face, as if he carried a secret he couldn't voice. Love had once warmed Jonathan's heart, but when it faded, only ashes remained. He walked into the night, the club's lights dimming behind him, his eyes holding no spark. Did the bright lights in others' eyes snuff out the last flame in his heart? Was the loneliness after a broken love the gust that blew out Jonathan's final spark? Chapter 4: A Star's Heartbreaking Fall. Jonathan got the news that seaQuest DSV was canceled while sitting alone in his small Los Angeles apartment, a photo with Roy Scheider still on the table. Faint streetlight spilling through a bare window. The phone rang. His manager's voice, cold. NBC pulled the plug. Jonathan said nothing, set the phone down, and sat in silence for hours, clutching the photo like it could hold onto the lost spotlight. At 20, he faced a cruel crossroads from a teen idol with 4,000 fan letters a week to a young man trying to become an adult actor in a Hollywood that waits for no one. He tried with small roles in Outside Providence and Ride with the Devil, but they were mere flickers in the dark. The biggest blow came in 2002 with Hart's War, starring Bruce Willis. Jonathan pinned high hopes, thinking it would relaunch him, but in the screening room, he sat among empty seats, watching the final cut. His name flashed in the credits, but his face was gone, just a fleeting scene, cut entirely, for the first time. Jonathan sat through the screening in silence, his eyes lost, as if he'd been erased from the story. His apartment filled with empty liquor bottles, the TV's flicker casting old seaQuest scenes on his face. But the reflection seemed to blur, like Jonathan himself was fading. A seaQuest crew member shared online, "We threw a birthday party for the cast." But no one invited Jonathan. He stood outside the glass door, looked in, then walked away. No one admitted it, and no one spoke up. Rumors spread that colleagues shunned him for not fitting in, but their silence only deepened his loneliness. In 2003, Jonathan bet everything on 111 Gramercy Park, a TV movie with Tippi Hedren and Jaleel White. On set, he kept asking Jaleel, "Will this air?" Jaleel recalled. He was so anxious, like his whole life rode on it, but the film wasn't picked up. Another door slamming shut. In his apartment, he watched an old seaQuest scene, the TV's glow lighting his weary face. A friend said Jonathan once murmured, "Hollywood's got no place for me." The words echoed in the empty room, like a confession no one heard. That night, the TV's light flickered on his face, but Jonathan wasn't watching. He sat still, gripping a bottle, as if waiting for a miracle that never came. Did a broken career and Hollywood's cold stares push him into a deeper darkness? Were those closed doors what made Jonathan give up on himself? Chapter 5: Dark Final Days. It was the last role Jonathan Brandis truly hoped for, a CIA assassin in Puerto Vallarta squeeze alongside Harvey Keitel. But behind every scene, under the set's stifling lights, A fear crept in that this might be his final time before a camera. In 2003, at 27, Jonathan clung to fragile hope. But his small Los Angeles apartment was littered with empty liquor bottles, dim streetlight filtering through the window, reminding him the spotlight was gone. On the Puerto Vallarta squeeze set, Jonathan was a pro, earning praise from Harvey Keitel. This kid's got real talent. But after each take, he'd pull Jaleel White, his co-star from 111 Gramercy Park, aside, asking, "Will they air it?" His voice trembled, as if the answer would decide whether he'd keep going or let go. Jaleel said, "I've never seen anyone so worried, like his whole life hung on it." But 111, Gramercy Park never aired, and that spark of hope died, leaving Jonathan in his apartment with liquor and heavy silence. On November 11th, 2003, Jonathan attended Leonardo DiCaprio's birthday party in Los Angeles, just hours before the tragedy. In the party's faint light, he stood alone in a corner, eyes red, gripping his phone. Someone there posted online. Jonathan argued with a man in a black jacket. No one caught the guy's face. He left fast, his phone lit with something unsent. He walked into the street, Los Angeles streetlights washing over his tired face, his phone glowing, dimming, glowing again. But no call was made, as if he wavered between seeking help or giving up. In his final days, Jonathan seemed trapped between hope and despair. Friends saw him smile, but it never reached his eyes. One said he'd whispered, "I'm tired of pretending everything's okay." In his apartment, the TV flickered, casting shadows of a star who once shone bright. His phone sat there, glowing one last time. Unanswered was that moment, leaving the party with that haunted look. When Jonathan chose to let go, what happened at that party that sent Jonathan into the dark, carrying a secret he never spoke? Chapter 6. A tragedy and lingering mysteries. A quiet hallway, a yellow bulb flickering on a stained ceiling. Around 11:40 at night on November 11th, 2003, Danielle Harris's boyfriend pushed open Jonathan Brandis's apartment door and froze. Jonathan hung in the shadows, a torn pillowcase around his neck, a few drops of liquor still wet on the tile below. A 911 call tore through the silence, ambulance sirens piercing the Los Angeles night. Jonathan was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors fought to save him. But on November 12th, he was gone forever, just 27. No note, no explanation. Only silence left in the cold apartment. His father, Greg, later shared that Jonathan showed signs of bipolar disorder in his 20s. Though never diagnosed, his mother suspected Accutane, an acne medication, worsened his moods, but online. Whispers told another story. Some claimed Jonathan kept tapes of private conversations with big names in the industry. After his death, those tapes vanished. A police report noted the apartment was unevenly messy, as if someone had searched for something specific, but the official report skipped details, leaving a gap of doubt. Rumors spread online that Jonathan's death wasn't suicide, but a staged cover-up to silence him about Hollywood's dark secrets. No proof, but tales of missing tapes and a ransacked apartment still chill. Jaleel White, his co-star, said, "I just stared at the screen, tears falling, when he heard the news. That hallway, with its flickering light and spilled liquor, was like an unfinished painting, hiding what Jonathan couldn't say. Was his death just the result of inner pain? Or was a bigger secret buried in those fragments? Did that cold hallway hold a truth Jonathan never got to share? Epilogue: a legacy and an unanswered question. Jonathan Brandis left a legacy both dazzling and heartbreaking. His roles in seaQuest DSV, It, and the NeverEnding Story II live on in fans' hearts, like old VHS tapes preserving his radiant smile. In 2021, childhood friend Soleil Moonfry released Kid 90, a documentary with old footage of Jonathan's laughter and playful eyes. I cried hearing his voicemail again. She said, voice breaking. Outside his old apartment, fans left candles, flowers, and faded tiger beat photos. One said, "My candle burned all night, and by morning, it still hadn't gone out," as if Jonathan's spirit lingered. Puerto Vallarta Squeeze came out in 2004, and Bad Girls from Valley High in 2005. Final pieces of a talent cut short. His father, Greg, said, "I talk to him every day, and I feel him looking down." He urged others to seek help for mental health if you're hurting. Reach out. Jonathan's tragedy teaches that the spotlight can shine bright, but also burn fragile souls. Fans created a true obsession to Brandis' page online, where his story lives on, keeping him alive. But questions remain. Rumors of a clash at Leonardo DiCaprio's party, missing tapes, or signs of a search in his apartment were never cleared up. A friend said Jonathan once whispered, "There are things I can't tell." Did he take a secret to his grave? If you've ever forced a smile, wondered who really hears you know someone's out there, don't hold it in. Like Jonathan did, share his story, not just to remember a star, but to remind us that behind every screen, smile is a person with pain. What do you think of Jonathan Brandis? Will the truth of his death ever come to light? Or will it stay a mystery? Like that flickering hallway light still hinting at something untold. And Jonathan, he carried it with him forever.